in our hands. Here we stand. I'm a teacher, I'm black, and I'm a man.
In demand,
Hard,
in demand,
intelligent,
in demand,
integrity.
in demand.
In demand. Teach, mentor, volunteer.
All right, what's up? Welcome to the first ever In Demand podcast. We hope to be with you guys for a long time throughout this year, beating the drum of having more black men involved in education as mentors, volunteers, and teachers in the Detroit area. My name is Quan Nellums, 15-year teacher within Detroit Public School. This is my second year actually as a counselor, so I got 17 years in the game as a teacher.
In the game.
In the counselor. So, man, you know, we'll get into more a little bit later with our guests into, you know, why In Demand was actually started. But, you know, In Demand was actually started, group of teachers, just really trying to do something about the lack of black men in the teaching profession. Right here, we in the city of Detroit right now. So we want to start off with Detroit, getting Detroit right, and then maybe, you know, our efforts can be a blueprint for other places as well. So pretty much we sent out the bat signal, right? We put out just a call. We use hip hop music. Wallace will give us a little bit of education on why hip hop is important to be used in the education field, but also to be used to garner support for endeavors such as In Demand. So we just trying to really gain momentum and grow our database of men who are willing and able and ready and trained to really infiltrate our schools, our communities, and to be a part of, you know, the education system, to be a part of the community as teachers, mentors, and volunteers.
Amen.
Yeah.
My name is Rod Wallace. This is my 20th year in the game. I was a teacher for 8 years in Northwest Detroit at a charter school, moved into leadership, became a school administrator, had the privilege of being an administrator in Dearborn Heights as well as Northwest Detroit, and then down in River Rouge. Now I'm the program director for EMU Upward Bound, doing some things at the university to support their College of Education. Also working on my PhD there with a real strong emphasis on hip-hop and its ability to affect not only the lives of young people, but the skill sets of young people.
That's right.
So hip-hop is a major part of who I am. It's a major part of what I do. And I was enamored to be able to participate in this venture because I recognize the fact that African-American men do have an impact on our schools, not only on our schools as African-Americans, but all schools. Mm-hmm. And so it's our charge at this point in our careers to be able to give that knowledge to somebody else and really gain the support of young men and changing the lives of other young men. So I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, you know, and, you know, just like you know, hip-hop is an important part of my life, was an important part of my upbringing as well.
Right.
Just like you know, we came of age in the 90s,
Absolutely.
you know, during that golden age of hip-hop. And so utilizing hip-hop in the classroom was like a no-brainer. You know, I think growing up, hip-hop made me smarter, you know, increased my vocabulary, increased my writing style. You know, biggest thing, it gave me a voice. You know, I think back to the ciphers that we used to do at the lunch tables, at anywhere you can find where you find people interested in hip hop, you'll find those ciphers, and it was important for us to resurrect that cipher. You know, for those of the people that was watching that don't know what a cipher is simply a group of people who usually rapping, beatboxing, dancing, you know, but in my case it was just rapping. And so being able to rap with fellow hip hoppers, and oftentimes you have people that were just spectators. And so one of the big things inside of the cipher is that you would, you know, call those spectators out to become, you know, participants. And so that's pretty much what we wanted to do with this video, man. Like I said before, send that bat signal out, because there's,
Absolutely.
you know, everybody who was a part of that golden age of hip hop. You know, we in our 40s now, right? Late 30s and 40s now, and so
Right.
we in the positions where we running things, you know. And I think that you know, recognizing lyrics, recognizing the boom bap, and then recognizing that call, that cipher where you say, hey, we calling you out. In this case, calling black men out, utilizing, you know, familiar language, saying that, yo, we need you to be in the lives of young people. You know,
absolutely.
Right here in Detroit. And so I want to get into the video, spend some time looking at the video, and then after it's done, you know, we can dissect it, you know, and talk a little bit about it and why we're using, you know, just some of your work with Hip Hop Ed as well.
Okay.
All right.
Statistics prove that when young black boys are exposed to positive black men, particularly a teacher, a classroom teacher, then they're less likely to drop out of high school. They're more likely to succeed and more likely to be happy about coming to school each and every day.
Agrio, true to the people, my language all lethal. Kingmaker for decades, giving lanes to weave through. Build war machines like Don Cheadle. My general stripes come from giving my life to fighting evil. My progeny roam the colony, address you properly. Broadcasters, lawmasters, strong leaders got to be. See my sons and my daughters like stock to me. And to see them prosperous be like guap to me. It ain't mythology, it's all done methodically. So taking charge is a guard thinking logically. I got a bone to pick with those who want a solo trip, dolo emotionless. These young bros ain't got a bowl to pitch. By raising children, dog, you nation building. Lace the will, and if they ain't, make it relation driven. 2% like milk, be the stilts on which the kingdom is built. Come grab the sword by his hilt. I'm in
put
the
my
band.
lifetime in between the paper's lines. Say, yo, I do it for the hood and I grind to shine. Shout out to Inktown with the growth and development. Inspired to change lives, and the gift it was heaven sent. Hard work meets artwork, front lines of things. Hard work meets smart work, changing lives and things. My profession is my mission, my passion, teaching youth. The hood needs my help, give me a call. I'm coming through, a call to action. I'm ready, choose me, I need your help. I need God to use me, gifts and talents with life, fists and balance. Very necessary, changing lives, it's a challenge. You keep your hands out, hey yo, I'm good with that. You made it out the hood, but yeah, how you giving back? When the youth need my help, I respond to the call. I can't do it by myself, therefore I need y'all.
In our hands, here we stand. I'm a teacher, I'm black, and I'm a man.
In demand,
Hard,
in demand,
intelligent,
in demand,
integrity.
in demand.
In our hands, here we stand. I'm a teacher, I'm black, and I'm a man.
In demand,
Hard,
in demand,
intelligent,
in demand,
integrity.
in demand. To try again with lyrics like vitamins. May I try amends? My heartstrings like a violin. As she holds back her seals, I'm listening for every synth and instrument. Her mind plays as a melody from within. And heavily hymns, those same strings gon' tie them in. Yeah. Through these minds we power up, that's Kaioken. Yeah. Can never be without, stop looking out, it's within. Don't worry though, I got him, the ferryman, I am him. True. See, knowledge like a cyclone. Tell you something I know, we really build pyramids. Y'all tripping over iPhones. To know one thing's to know nothing, I believe that. Here to teach the kids not what they want, but what they need. Just know that what they be, divine if they see. They kill us just in spite of the blood that we bleed. So parents got your seeds, let them grow, they a tree. And must I repeat, knowledge is key, that's why I teach.
Indeed, I'm that 2%. 16 years of impacting students. Now for this decision, they said that I was foolish. If not us, then who else is gonna do this? Teach them life, teach them right, what the truth is. SMD, bright, more is the blueprint. Project Adapt, Mama Rush was the blueprint. Now here we stand on the cusp of a movement. That's education versus schooling. Recruiting legacy, heart, intelligence, integrity. Wherever it be, whenever we see men on the front lines, the better we'll be. Psalms 82 verse 3. The whole hood is waiting on you, Aki. When the elephants return, their relevance returns. Their presence is affirmed. Stand up, it's our turn. In our hands, here we stand. I'm a teacher, I'm black, and I'm a man.
In demand,
Hard,
in demand,
intelligent,
in demand,
integrity.
in demand.
In our hands, here we stand. I'm a teacher, I'm black, and I'm a man.
In demand,
Hard,
in demand,
intelligent,
in demand,
integrity.
in demand.
On the daily, I'm arisen to drop wisdom. So using the classroom as my platform as a given. You better believe teaching is noble and live as it gets. Brothers in education only rep 2%. Supreme wisdom inserts us into the fold like gold. Watching the sea unravel, there's more to behold. In my soul, I believe I was born to teach. Through consciousness in my rhymes, I extend my reach. Most definitely, elevation's a thought process. Accompanied by knowledge, it starts to manifest. If you don't believe me, you should put it to the test. At the end of the day, when I teach one, I'm blessed. Helping students navigate forces of evil they can see through. While building a foundation of a greatness, it can be you. Developing critical thinking without blinking. Third eye on the horizon, get out before you sink in. This is the outcome when you put in that work. While others stay trapped in the matrix, I stay mentally alert. Yes, indeed, we feed the seeds. Not lowering our standards, expectations are to exceed.
Black male educators matter because when you look at comparatively the teacher demographic of high-performing teachers, black men still have a unique and distinct impact on the trajectory of our schools and our communities.
All right, so that was the In Demand video. We did that video, released it back in July. We had a lot of people who were very, very inspired by that video. I mean, lots of people viewed it, commented on it. We still get calls about it today. We got the opportunity to, participate in the TEDx Detroit.
Right.
Where we got a chance to have a full house at the Masonic Temple where we were able to talk about the video, the song, and actually performing in front of a live crowd. So, what are your thoughts, man? Why use that medium of hip hop?
Well, first, the experience of making a song, getting the call to be a part of it was huge. Making a song. What I did share with somebody before was that I felt as though I had been writing that verse my whole life.
That's right.
Because teaching has been my life for the last 2 decades. And I had the opportunity to really share my experience and what I felt like the responsibility was. And, just as you spoke earlier about the fact that you do business with your kids, I'm the same way. And I feed off the energy of my kids. The first kids who I taught are 31 now. Mm-hmm. And so they have families of their own, and they have children and businesses and things of their own. And it's been such a blessing to me to be able to pour into them and it come back. So me making that song was about them. Yeah. I during the course of the song, I talked about, and don't get me to quoting.
I got a quote for you, man. You said something about building war machines like Don Cheadle, man. Explain that one. I always meant to ask you, what does that mean?
I think that if you truly understand urban education, you should recognize it as war.
All right.
You should recognize teaching as an act of revolution.
That's right.
And I build war machines. I build people who had a capacity to devise plans to, supersede their situation, because our children have to be strategic. It's one thing to be an overcomer. That's extremely important. And that has a spiritual foundation as well. But we also have to be strategic in understanding that there is a way to navigate through this system. And you will find pitfalls, and you will find mines in the dirt, and you will find this, and you will find that. So it is about being a war machine. It is about being somebody. And what's funny is, what I thought about after the fact was, because I'm really into the analysis of why we write and why we say the things that we do lyrically. People who write rhymes or people who write stories. War Machine was wearing the armor of somebody else. And the unfortunate truth is, a lot of our navigation involves us being able to navigate systems and processes that are already around us. And you have to put your own input, your own spin into it. And I think that what In Demand does is it gives us the ability to control that suit of armor a little bit better. It gives us the ability to create the suit of armor that we're asking so many of our kids to wear.
That's right.
So that's why I'm here. Yeah. And that's why the video and the song is so special to me.
Yeah.
And getting on the stage at TEDx Detroit and telling everybody to stand up and
that's right.
all that. It was, and I want to thank you for that. I can't thank you enough.
Man, thank you, brother.
For that opportunity.
It's a all call effort,
Yeah.
I think that, everybody on the video. I mean, not just the rappers, but everybody there. You know, it showed first of all, united front. You know, you had teachers, you had advocates, you had volunteers and mentors.
Right.
You had charter in public.
Right.
You know, and the unifying goal was the children, and that also we were black men.
Right.
Taking up the call to be involved. You know, and
Absolutely.
I think that what the video does, it gives us a different look of what teaching is and what it could be. You know, and I think that you know, those of us who grew up in that golden age of the 90s, the message that we received, you know, I think that those messages are bearing fruit. You know,
Right.
we came in at the Public Enemy. We had Carrot Chris one. You know, we had all these people speaking. You must learn, right? And this is, you know, that message. You know, that keeping it real message.
Yeah.
This is the grown up version of it.
I think when a lot of times people talk to me about how hip hop has changed over time, and I think one thing that we've walked away from on a large scale is storytelling.
That's right.
People who rhyme are storytellers. They're griots.
You must be a history teacher, man.
I am
That's
actually,
that's what I'm
brother.
talking about,
By nature.
That's
I'm
right.
especially important these days, by the way.
Yeah.
But I think about songs like "Slow Down" by Brand Nubian. That was a story.
Yeah.
And those people who are effective at storytelling in today's climate of hip hop are special people. The J. Coles, the Kendrick Lamars. These people, the reasons they're making connections with people is because they're telling stories. And I think that's what teachers do.
Yeah.
That's what teachers excel at. When I was a middle school social studies teacher at Detroit Service Learning Academy a decade and a half ago now, I didn't teach social studies, I taught ethics. You know, I told the kids, I'm not teaching social studies, I teach ethics, but I'm gonna teach you ethics through the lens of history. So everything that I did was about teaching them ethics by telling them about the Aztecs, telling them about the Mayans, telling them about U.S. history. And I think that's part of why it's important that black men are in these classrooms to be able to tell our stories.
That's right. And you know, and I think that even when we talk about the transition of hip hop and how it is now and the storytelling, things like that, we just got to talk about black music, period. You know, black people, we experience music differently than any other race, right? Because our music, literally, when you talk about the beginning of original music in America, it's black music. You know, you talk about the Negro spirituals and the field hollers, right? Those songs were literally made to save the lives of people listening, right? Whether you're talking about Wade in the Water, Swing Low, Sweet Cherry, you know, those were all coded messages that the listener was able to get instructions on how to get free or what to do, you know. And that's how we experience music, as literally it saved our lives, you know.
Right.
And so, you know, we fast forward now, you know, and, you know, not to down anybody's musical expression, but you know, that's what music is to do, you know, and I think that's what the In Demand video was doing, was to inspire, to really save the lives of, you know, not just the kids that we were talking about, but the, you know, giving men purpose,
right?
You know, and that this is a, you know, In Demand is, you know, again, you don't necessarily have to be an educator. We're trying to increase education, but we're just trying to increase involvement of men, black men, period, in the lives of young people, right? And so I think that was the goal, and you know, it's just not. The In Demand video, we got songs. There's a third song that'll be coming out. Oh yeah, I didn't tell you
I'm
about
waiting
that.
for a text.
There's a third joint.
Invitation.
We already recorded it. It's already been recorded, man.
Dude.
yeah. So yeah.
They hating on us.
No. We
hating on
we gotta
us,
spread
roster.
the love, man. So many
Hating
of us,
on
man.
this
You gotta remember the visual is that we want to show men doing the work, and you know, because although we want to boost the numbers, we want to really give. You know, shouts out. We want to uplift those who are doing the work.
Absolutely.
Already, you know, and we do have a lot of us that's doing the work as educators and people who are thoroughly involved in the community, working with young people, involved in the schools. Yeah, working with young people, and so I think you know, that's one of the good things I think about the video itself. I mean, I know you've probably, you know, you can talk about some of the feedback you've gotten, but you know, the feedback I've got, you know, people like literally have stop me or email me or text me. It's like, yo, man, I was feeling like I was getting burnt out. This really set me back on fire.
And it's across the board. It's from the field of education, both K-12 and higher ed. I'm getting, I got phone calls and, all kinds of shares from it or whatever, but also from kids. And I think the best feedback I got was from my kids.
Oh, wow.
And they like, look at Mr. Wallace, look at, and that's what really made me most proud. The messages that I got, the private messages I got saying, I'm just so proud of you. I'm so proud you was my teacher. You changed my life. And, even when I talked about in the song, I talked about broadcasters, law masters and all that. I have Jasmine Durham from my first class is the anchor up in Flint for TV 12. And I have kids that are working in Lansing and doing all. So it was very real to me. So to get that kind of response was just magical. And I think it resonates with people, because the song was hard. Let's say it for what it was. It wasn't like we got up there and was preaching, being preachy about it. It was hard. So it was what I love. So I still love it to this day.
And so you mentioned something, man. When I ask people, black men who've been in the profession for a while, I ask the question, what made you stick with it for so long, right? I just want to hear your response.
When I first got in teaching, if I could tell a little bit about my story, I wanted to be a teacher when I was young, but I was really into the technical side of entertainment. So I started pursuing telecom and film. And when I was in college, I had a really good friend named Inaugural, rest in peace, who was a guy I knew in Flint, but he was really close to me in college too. And really just, that's what he was doing. And he was like, I'm going to change the world one kid at a time, and just really imprinted that in my mind. So that idea came back. I started teaching, shout outs to Wayne Baskerville. Called me one day and said, if you want to come teach 5th grade at this charter school that's 2 years old, you can come and do it while you kind of figure out what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a history professor. And I got in it, and it was the hardest thing I had ever done. And I think what kept me going, I built on top of a foundation of care, of compassion, of the interest in seeing students achieve. And I just built my strategies upon that. And it got to a point where I knew I had an obligation. I knew I had an obligation. I knew I had a skill set, but I knew I had an obligation on a day-to-day basis. I never was the type to take a lot of work off. I was the type that would teach summer school and, do all those things. When I became an administrator, my hope is that my passion bled through my walk every day. So I stayed for as long as I did because I felt like my kids were my legacy. And that that would shine through anything that happened to me. And the only reason that I walked away from the school building was because of some changes that happened in my personal life. And I don't regret making the adjustment that I did. Of course not, because it was all the Lord's will. But now I'm at a place where I have the capacity to impact more people, more kids. I run a program, but I'm also working to get more teachers in the field who are competent, who are confident, who are leaders, who are interested in service and understand their role. So that's why I stayed, and I'm still there.
See, and this is the point I wanted to bring in is that, like you, every time I ask that question, I never hear people say because of the money, right? Money is a factor. And I think that although I do believe teachers do need to be paid more, I believe that those who stick with teaching longer than the time period in which people actually leave, I think that those who do leave, is it 4?
I'd say on average it's 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years, okay. So those who stay longer, they talk like you, where it's like, like you say, it's a revolutionary spirit. It's like, I'm not just in it. Like my story is that, I started off in material science engineering. I volunteered at a local middle school in Detroit, Peter Vitar, for a summer.
Shout out to Vital.
Yeah, Vital, and it's no longer in existence, but you know, but that experience changed my life. Just seeing how the community worked with the school worked with the community, it was life changing. And I was like, I want more of this because I see the important work that men in the community, people in the community were doing with the schools. And it was literally changing the lives of the kids, changing the lives of parents, changing the lives of the community. You know, the school is nothing. First of all, the school belongs to the community. So we are community servants, public servants, but you know, on top of that, we are revolutionaries. We are in the same vein of Harriet Tubman, of Malcolm X, Martin, Fred Hampton, Muhammad Ali. We're in the same vein because, like you said, man, what I've been seeing, like this whole year, I've had professional relationships with students that I had when they were when they were younger. You know, so now they're becoming of age, and you really get a chance to see the fruit of your labor. And to me, that's the reward. You know, that's the reward. I mean, like I said, I do think we need to get paid more. But that reward of seeing kids grow, them giving you props, saying like, hey, you changed the trajectory of the way I thought about this or whatever. I think that's the biggest reward when you can literally be used by God to. And that's the other side of it. This is spiritual work too, right? You know what I'm saying? This is faith work. We have faith that the things that we're doing, because a lot of times we can't see it right then and there, right? We got faith that it's going to mature sometime in the future, you know? And so I do believe that those who are drawn to the profession and who stay, they have that revolutionary spirit. And that's what we're looking for. I think right now, especially the kids now who came of age in the millennium, their introduction to social problems was Trayvon Martin, right? And it was different for us because our introduction was Rodney King, right? Right. And
how old were you when Rodney King?
That was 1990.
1991.
I was 11.
Okay.
Yeah. How old were you?
14.
Okay. So that was our introduction, right? Yeah. And it was something to be laughed at. People laughed at it. They were like, can't we all just get along? I specifically remember in Living Color doing skits about that. Can we all just get along? And so it really didn't, activate you to want to do something. It just made you laugh, right? But when we fast forward to, students who've come of age in the 2010s, Trayvon Martin, then the litany of young men who were met their demise by the hands of cops or racial incidents and things like that. It just came one after another. And it kind of affected them differently because Trayvon Martin was nothing to laugh at. Philando Castile was nothing to laugh at. Eric Brown was nothing to laugh at. And so with them, it's almost like what happened with the Emmett Till generation. In the 1950s, Emmett Till is murdered. When they came of age, they came of age in the 60s, and they let the 60s on fire, right? This is probably the greatest civil rights acts and movement of our time, right? And so the kids that we taught, they are like that generation, and I'm interested to see what they're going to do with all the things that they experience. And so what I've seen is that they have that fervor to be activists and to be revolutionaries, but the outlet. And I believe that teaching or being involved in schools is that outlet.
It promotes the discourse that kids need to be able to process their thinking and process their ideas next to what they're hearing and what they're seeing to be able to make sense of it all. And I think, when you consider, Stokely Carmichael and the individuals who were in college in the late 60s who had a more revolutionary perspective, a lot of that came from being in an environment that cultivated thinking and cultivated thoughts. So I always felt like I wanted to cultivate that in my classroom. Right. And so you're absolutely right. And I think part of our job too is teaching how to navigate, teaching how to have those conversations with other people or amongst themselves to challenge this conventional thought that's a result of the ethnocentrism we've been experiencing all this time. How do you navigate dealing with the police? How do you navigate if you don't have somebody in your ear that's telling you that? If you don't have somebody in your ear to teach you about how to tie a tie, you know. And again, as I always say, no detriment at all to any black women or any women, period, that's doing this work too. I think that we have our perspective is necessary, but all the best teachers I've ever had were women. You know what I'm saying? I have to be honest about that, you know. But I know the impact that my perspective gives. And so, that's how it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, and just what we do know is that, you know, black men being involved in education has a tremendous impact, especially on black boys. And we know that when it comes to black boys, and just speaking for Michigan, you know, and the numbers are the same across the nation, that black boys tend to be recommended for special education programs.
Disproportionately. Absolutely.
Suspensions, expulsions, you know, and lots of times it has a lot to do with the bias of the adults that's in charge.
It may not just be the bias. Okay. I think that some people have a difficult time communicating and recognizing certain cues of black men as well. And young black men may have a difficult time seeing cues from others. In some research, black men are viewed as both the problem and the solution in schools. I think we've talked about that before.
Indeed.
They're viewed as the problem as being the low achievers and the disciplinary problems and this, that, and third. And they're viewed as being the solution in terms of being able to come into the school and save kids. But I've seen extremely competent, culturally competent teachers of other types who come into the classroom seeking to understand before they're understood, who are effective. It takes time. It takes time. It takes the development of relationships. It takes the development of patience, so on and so forth. But it can be done. And I think that black men, we kind of encapsulate the promise that schools make to parents anyway, you know, because customarily, and we can talk for hours about how black men are disproportionately put in positions of the delving of discipline.
Yeah, that's right.
But there's a reason and a purpose behind that. I think that it's deep. That whole conversation is a deep rabbit hole. But we embody that promise that schools say, yeah, we're going to take care of your child. We're going to look out for your child. And there's a lot of black men that are in these schools, especially in informal roles, especially in athletic coaches, you know, that are really looking out for young men above and beyond what the system dictates they should be. And that's why we're all here today.
Yeah, and man. So with that being said, we're gonna move on. Again, In Demand is just our efforts to recruit more black men to the Detroit area as teachers, mentors, and volunteers to be activated in the lives of young people. We have, you can go on to IamInDemand.com to watch these videos, to learn more about the program. If you're in the Detroit area and you're interested in being an educator, if you're already an educator and you're looking to come to Detroit, if you are looking to be a mentor or volunteer, on January 18th, 2020 at the Durfee Innovation Society, we will have the official In Demand launch. And what we're going to do, we're going to have the house packed with black men. We're going to have schools, organizations, programs that are looking for black men to be involved. And so you would be able to sign up right then and there. You'll be able to hear each of these programs from the stage. They'll get at least about 2 minutes to talk about what they need and what their program is all about. And the goal is to really have black men present that's able to sign up. But not only that, what you can do right now is to RSVP for the actual event, but also to sign up on our database. There's a brief survey where you can really sign up to what your interests are, and we can use that database to put your information to programs within the city of Detroit where you can be involved and you can be activated. With that being said, we've been talking about black men a lot. I want to invite a young lady to join us, Miss Davis, Miss Michelle Davis. She was a 2017 Teacher of the Year award winner for the Coleman A Foundation. I've seen her in action. She's a awesome educator. She's a superhero. She always talk about the superhero life. She's a superhero to the children that she worked with. I'm gonna call her up, and she'll tell us a little bit more about herself, and we'll look at this whole concept of in demand from a woman's perspective. So right now we have Michelle Davis that's joined us. I'm glad to have her here. I met Miss Davis maybe about 10 years ago. All right, recently, and really, she was the spark that started In Demand. I'm not sure if you guys knew that, but I was presenting at a conference, and the presentation was about engaging black men and boys across school and community. And so I did some talking about how how I was able to engage men at the school that I was at, right, as volunteers and mentors and things like that. And she slipped her hand in the air politely, and she told me a little bit about her predicament at her school, and I let her talk about her work with young men. And she said, "Where can I find these men that you're talking about?" There was not a steady stream of black men that were assisting or volunteering with the program that she was running. And so that troubled me so much. And as the type of person I am, I always try to look for solutions. And so I said, next time something like that happens, I want to be able to say, here's a database of men that are ready to be activated, that are trained, that are vetted to be volunteers, mentors, educators. And that's where In Demand started. That whole thought about having that database. And so that was why it started, to get the call out to put the bat signal out was the hip hop song. But Michelle was the person who put that spark, that idea in my mind to want to create this type of situation to assist anybody who's looking for black men to be activated. So, Miss Davis.
Good evening, and thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
All right, and we're excited to have you. And then I'm going to say it again just because I know the audio got kind of messed up, but she was the 2017 Coleman A Foundation Teacher of the Year. She's the Dean of Students at Davis Aerospace Academy. No, Davis Aerospace High School, Technical High School. Yes. Let me get that right.
Yes.
She runs the Brotherhood program, which is a male mentoring program. Yep, I said that. Mm-hmm. We have a woman that's running a male mentoring program. All right, we'll talk more about that. So, Ms. Davis, thank you for Michelle. I'm sorry. Thank you for joining us, and tell us a little bit about your journey as an educator.
So this is my 24th years in education, and I believe that you have to be called to be an educator, almost like you're called to be a minister.
That's right.
Right, because it's hard work. You cannot do this work yourself. It's a little bit of you, and it's all God and a lot of the ancestors. So I feel like I was called to do this work. I was built to do this work. I'm a warrior and a revolutionist, and I can't help myself. Okay. If I could do it a different way, I would. I don't know how to do it any other way.
All right. 24 years. Yeah, 24 years in the game?
24 years in the game.
Wow. So you must have started when you was like 12 or something like that?
I think it was like 12 and a half, maybe 13.
Yeah. Okay. As we mentioned earlier, you've been doing a great work, been celebrated in the school system. My question is, how does a woman become start a program to mentor young boys?
What is this saying? A necessity is the mother of invention.
Indeed.
I had a group of young men who would come to my office every day after school, and they would keep me there to 8 or 9 o'clock. And so finally I said, okay, you all pick a day. I can't stay here with you all 4 hours after school. I need you all to pick one day. So they picked Friday. So we would stay after school on Fridays and talk about all of the issues that they were having. And then one of the young men, James Murray, said, Ms. Davis, you should start a male mentoring program. And I kind of laughed to myself, and I said, no, sweetheart, I'm a woman. A woman can't run a male mentoring program. Go, ask the male teachers, and come back. And they were back pretty quickly. And they said no. And I said, who said no? Because it was mostly males in the building. And James said they all said no. So, you know, when a child asks you for something, you show up for them. So we started this, they named it the Brotherhood. And our our mantra is image, and it stands for integrity, manhood, activism, generosity, and excellence. I can teach them integrity. I can teach them how to be generous. I can teach them to be excellent. I can't teach them how to be men. And so it is extremely important that Black men are present, because boys don't know how to become healthy men unless they see healthy men.
What do you define as a healthy man?
Someone who understands what his community needs, someone who understands his own mental health and the healthiness of himself spiritually, emotionally, physically, someone who has a great grasp of their history, someone who is a lover of children and God and their community, and who's willing to do the work. And who understands that as Black people, we have all of this trauma. So health is a journey, right? Not a destination. We've had hundreds of years of oppression. So it's going to take us a very long time to be whole and healthy and heal fully. So someone who's always on that journey.
And so you're saying that that's the type of man that they need in front of them.
That is the type of man that they need in front of them. Or someone who's just willing to do the work. Let's just say that you're not at that space in your journey, right? But you're willing to show up consistently for Black boys, right? Sometimes we just need you to show up. I was having a conversation with them before I came here today, and I asked them the same question, right? I said, you all, I'm going to go do this podcast. And one of the questions is, how can a woman be over the male mentoring program? And I was very saddened by some of their answers, because unfortunately their position was, Ms. Davis, we're used to women doing all of the work, right? Because men are missing. Out of about 20 boys that were present, young men that were present, maybe 2 lived with their fathers. And the rest of them were like, you know, what we know about you is that you're going to be consistent, because they have all of these issues around Black men not showing up for them. Now, what we know is that that's not everyone's experience. But unfortunately, it's a very, very real experience for those people that it's a real experience for. And so we have these boys who, for a lot of them, are kind of standoffish when new mentors come. That's right. Because they don't understand how to make healthy attachments, because they've never been attached to a male figure in their lives. Or when they make attachments, those people don't stay around. So I engaged in that conversation with them, and it was disturbing. Because what I understand is that Black men are phenomenal, and they're interesting, and they're smart, and we need them. They have to be present, right? So there are all of these things that I can do as a Black woman, and I'm very proud of that. But I am taken from the man's rib. I'm a part of him, right? So I can do my part, but there's a part that's missing, right? We're supposed to be whole with each other. So Black men are very, very important in our community and in our schools. And when they're not present, something is missing with our children.
And, you know, you kind of touched on it already, but I'm going to go ahead and ask anyway, just to be clear to the people that's listening. Well, before I ask the question, can you tell me maybe some of the successes that you've had already with this Brotherhood program?
Oh, absolutely. So there is one prerequisite for being a part of the Brotherhood.
Okay.
And that is when you graduate and you go off to post-secondary education, if you go get a job, if you go to the military, that you come back and you mentor. right? That you come back to your community and you help heal the ills of your community. So I have a lot of success stories where I have students who are in politics, and so they've been policymakers. I have students who own businesses, so they donate, you know, goods and money and anything that the kids need. I have students who come back and do what they said they were going to do, right? Pour back into the boys. So we have some mentors who are mentors because they used to be my mentees, and that is the purpose. So, you know, some mentoring programs, you have to have a certain GPA, not this one. You have to have a certain behavioral. Nope, we can work with your behavior. We understand that a lot of times that behavior is a manifestation of their trauma, right? Amen. So we're gonna help heal you. So if you're acting out good, I'm gonna love on you more. You need it the most. But we have had a lot of success with students coming back and donating their time and their talent, or even, you know, helping to fund us. But, you know, people are busy and our lives are shaped differently. And what I need in addition to those things are black men who are gonna show up consistently for young black boys.
And I can concur. I mean, I had the opportunity to interview a lot of these young men, and the consistent thing is that this program helped me to become a better person, not just a better student, but a better person. You know, and so I've got a chance to see that fruit, those successes. And the question that I wanted to ask, I wanted to make sure that you talked about the success that you've had already, because a lot of times in a position where, you know, you didn't necessarily have black men that stood up, so you had to kind of stand up and do it. And that's been the story of our communities for, you know, a couple generations now, where, you know, our women have been holding us down for a couple generations now. And so, like you said, it's not everybody's story, but for a lot of people, that's the real story. You know, I can remember growing up where, you know, out of my friends, we probably had one of them that had both parents living in the house, right? Mother and father. But so with that being said, as a woman, a superhero, a warrior, a revolutionist, as you said, who've had success in this area of mentoring black boys, you still recognize that black men are needed?
Absolutely. Not only are they needed, it's mandatory, right? It's imperative. We have somebody like Jamari who, when he joined the Brotherhood, he had like a 1.3. Now he has like a 3.7, right? But Jamari on a regular basis talks about how his father is not present, right? And how he longs for that. That's something that he needs. We were talking about trauma today. And I asked the young men if they felt like there was space in their life for them to really look at their mental health and be vulnerable, right? We had a young man who's losing his grandmother. And Jamari was saying too, that he gave the young man advice and he told him to be strong. And I said, I don't know that that's the right advice for him, right? Because what happens a lot of times with black men is that you all aren't given the luxury of feeling your full emotions, which is why black men suffer heart attacks and all stress-related illnesses at a higher rate than anyone else, because you haven't been able to feel the full range of how you're feeling, right? And so we taught
to hide them,
right,
hide those things,
right? Yeah. And so if a little girl falls, then we come and we scoop her up and we kiss her and we comfort her and we show her compassion and we tell her it's going to be okay. But if a little boy falls, we tell him toughen up,
suck it up,
don't cry. Big boys don't cry. You good. There's nothing wrong with you, right? But then we want black men, when they get married, right, to be compassionate.
That's right.
We want black boys to show sympathy and empathy and not be bullies and not make fun of each other when someone is feeling weak or vulnerable, right? But we don't create a space for that. So I just think that it's important and it's incumbent upon us to have black men present to really tell black boys how to navigate health in a healthy way through pain, right? I was at a meeting yesterday, and we were talking about trauma, and one of the deans, which mortified me, said, well, you know, they have to push through it. No, we need to heal our children in a way that's healthy. And so when we have healthy black men present, and they're talking to black boys about how to navigate through, you know, living in the wilderness of North America, then we have a better product. We have more healthy men, and our communities and our families are more healthy.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, and like you said, that's the work. That's the work. You know, the quote from Frederick Douglass: "It's easier to build, you know, strong children than it is to fix broken men." I think I got that right. I'm not sure, but that's the work. I believe that we are at a space now. Like, you know, I think about the work of Jason Wilson and his work with boys and teaching at the young age that to be a comprehensive man, yes, you can be strong, you can be a lion, but you also have to be empathetic. You have to be loving. You can, you know, and as a man, you can experience those full range of emotions, and you can experience sadness. You can, work through your feelings and things like that, and not feel bad about doing that. And so, the work is that our schools have our kids for 5 days a week, right? 180 days a year, right?
Yes.
For, you know, from kindergarten to 12th grade. If any place that, whether what you feel about education, our kids are still there. They're still in the schools. And so to me, that's the perfect place for men to be activated. Not the only place, but it's the perfect place for men to be activated, because that's where our kids are. And if it's easier to build strong children, you know, we want to get them at that point, because the things that do get them at that point, at that young age, is misconstrued masculinity, you know, negative feedback and negative images, and, you know, being put in special needs when, you know, you might not need to be, and stigma and all that stuff. Right. And so I think it's, you know, the work that you do, the call for black men to be involved, especially when we're talking about our black boys, like you said, you know, for that statistic that you gave from your group of kids, they're reluctant because they don't, you know, see men on a typical basis and doing the things that you're doing. And I know there's men that'll sit there and be like, hey man, you know, you can cry. I think one of the most powerful videos I've seen was again, of Jason Wilson, and he's telling a young man who's crying after trying to break a board in his martial arts class. And he said, you know, yeah, it's okay to cry. Sometimes as a black man, you gotta cry, right? You know, and for an older man to tell a younger man that, you know, yeah, it's powerful, it's huge, and it gives you that opportunity to release. And so, you know, I appreciate the work that you're doing. What would you tell, you know, like you said, we have a launch again. We have the In Demand launch, January 18th, 2020, from 3 to 5 o'clock at the Durfee Innovation Society. You know, we had the flyer up and everything. What would you tell men? We want to connect men to opportunities such as with the brotherhood. What would you tell men who are maybe watching this, who may not be watching this, and somebody may tag them, or, you know, a friend or lady friend may tag them and say, hey, you need to, you know, watch this or get involved. You know, what would you tell men watching this right now?
Just show up, right? A lot of times men will say, I don't know if I'm equipped to mentor black boys. They think that there's a certain standard, a certain requirement that you have to have reached a certain level. And that's not true. Young boys just need somebody to talk to, right? They need somebody that's going to show up for them on a consistent basis. They need a listening ear. They need somebody who's going to applaud for them when they've done tremendous work, and they need somebody who's going to really talk to them and get them on the right path when they've strayed a little. We just need them to show up, right? And all of us have a gift. We can all do something.
That's right.
Right? So we had an incident where, you know, you came to talk to the boys and you were videotaping us, and I looked at them earlier, and all of my boys needed a haircut. They all just needed a haircut, right? And so, you know, some of them have really big afros, and I love a big afro, right? But I'm like, can you get a line up, please? And so we had a young man to come out, and he cut everybody's hair for free, right? And so his timing does not fit in our schedule. Every other Friday from 3:30 to 5, right? So he's not able to come. But what he could do was come and cut everybody's hair. And so he did a whole shift, right? He got there about 10 and left about 6. And we still had a number of boys that didn't have their haircuts. And he said, don't worry, I'll be back tomorrow. So there's something that you can do, right? If you're an author, and you have a book. We have a mentor, Damon Autry, who gave the boys books. He had written this book as a letter to his son, and he gave all the boys books. And I was in a class, and one of the mentees was not doing his work. He's reading a book. And so I said, what are you doing? Everybody else is working. He's like, Miss Davis, I'm sorry, I just can't tear myself away from this book. I'm like, sweetie, go on and read.
That's right.
Because that's the work, right? And so whatever you can do, whatever that looks like for you, just show up. Boys just need people that's going to show up on a consistent basis for them.
And I think you said something very important. And you know, and Wallace talked about it earlier as well, is that doing this work is just not helpful. It's not only helpful to the students and the kids that we work with, it's helpful to us as well. And I think that, you know, we also have a problem with black men not knowing, you know, I'm talking about adults not knowing their purpose. Feeling like their purpose is just tied up in a
Get
job.
money.
Yeah, get money, or I'm only validated by how much money I got, you know.
Not to generalize, but yeah.
Yeah, not to generalize, but we know that's a mantra, a popular mantra. You know, you can see the shirts that say, you know, grind, baby, you know, grind, stack, whatever. And like, I think that being involved in this type of work, you know, even when you're talking about the barber, you know, he did that because that made him feel purposeful.
Yes, absolutely.
That made him feel a way that no money could could make you feel. The way we talk about money was like, if you knew that helping out the next generation, being in their life, being a superhero, you know, that helps you to find purpose, and it's rewarding, very rewarding. And, you know, I want to definitely highlight that to say that, you know, if any man is watching right now and you're looking like, man, you know, I can't do anything, there's something that you can do. If you can cut hair, if you like playing video games.
If you can cook.
If you can cook.
Because the boys eat. You know, we have to feed them.
Yeah.
If you like to cut grass.
Yeah, if you
like
can rap.
You know, there's a million and one things that can be done.
If you're good at math, you can come and tutor them, or English, or poetry, or if you're a clinician, you can, because they all have trauma. There is something that we can do, right?
Yeah. And then, you know, I know of one of the big biggies that I hear about is that, you know, what if I got a felony or something like that, you know? And we've had this conversation before too.
We have. There's still something that you can do, right? Because you are bigger than your worst mistake.
That's right.
And you are still a valuable human being, and you matter to the community.
Absolutely.
So, you know, all of us are one bad decision away from a felony.
That's right.
Right? And some of us, you know, have made poor decisions growing up, and, you know, we just didn't get caught. Right? So thereby the grace of God. And we don't throw anybody away. So just that is not a title that you have to keep on forever. That's a title that someone gave you. And so the title that we're going to give you is part of our community, is mentor, is somebody that's valuable, right? Is powerful black man, is somebody who is protecting and looking out for black boys. That's the real title, right? So you could have a felony, but there is still some work to do, and, you know, there has to be some atonement, right? So if you've done something in the community where you did not show up as your best, this is an avenue by which you can atone to your community, right? You have to go back and heal the community that you hurt. And so this is a way. And I also want to say this, that when black men show up, it helps black women. It makes us softer, right? I was walking down the hall and I was giving some kids some directive. And one of the kids, in jest and as a compliment, said, y'all better respect Miss Davis gangster, right? And so I thought about that. And in a moment, I was like, yeah, respect my gangster, right? But who wants to be a gangster, right? And so when we pour into our black boys, right, then I don't have to do the work of black men because I can't do it effectively anyway. There's some things that I can do as a woman, and I do those things well, right? But there's some things that I could not possibly do as a woman, only men can do. I can't create the M, right? The manhood. I can do everything else. I can make sure that they're operating from a place of integrity. I can teach them, you know, you're true to your word. That's all you have. You show up for people. You're responsible for each other and yourselves and your community, right? I can teach them that when you put your name on anything, it should be excellent. It needs to be something that you're proud of. We don't do anything last minute. We do everything with purpose and with preparation, right? I can teach them generosity, that this is not about you, that we come from a long history of looking out for each other, right? If it, you know, we were never a selfish people. We always covered and protected. So there's some things that I really can teach the boys. I cannot teach them manhood. I have no idea what it's like to be a black man, and when black men are talking about being black men, I'm quiet or taking notes.
I like the word that you used, atonement, because I think I try to be a causal thinker, and I try to think about, you know, why would somebody resist the call? And it could be for, you know, several reasons, but one that I feel like needs to be addressed. I think in terms of men stepping into the building or stepping into a school situation to learn themselves, I think that sometimes we come to the table with a lot of anxiety about our own experiences in school too. And I think part of the charge of this organization is to really address that. There are many men who are walking around that had really negative experiences in schools that were dominated by white supremacy. And, you know, they may have not had the best educational experience, and that may be keeping them away. I think being very open about that, encouraging men to confront that is important as well. But yeah, I think this is the way, like we talked about, teaching is a mode of revolution, and it's almost like the quickest pathway to social change. So if you see something that needs to be done in your community, I give you a lot of credit for what you're doing, but because you're actively changing the world.
And let me say this, right? So I totally agree with you that a lot of men don't show up in schools because they had a lot of negative experiences, right? And they know how they felt. They know the isolation that they felt, right? Particularly because we live in a very materialistic society, and most black people live in poverty if you live in the inner city. So if you didn't have the freshest gear, if you didn't have the coolest shoes, if you weren't, you know, I was in school in the 80s, so if you didn't have a Gucci belt and the Gucci shoes and the Gucci backpack and you didn't have a Max Julian and so then a lot of times you were outcast, right? And we have young men who are having that same experience. Right? So what you understood is that those things didn't make you into the person, the valuable person that you are, but that is another title, right? That people put on you. You're the outcast, you're the nerd, because you don't have these things.
Right.
So it is incumbent upon you, because you know what it feels like to be isolated, to go into the schools and teach those young boys that does not define you, right? Somebody's label does not define you.
Right.
You, first of all, you are already defined because you are perfectly created in an image of God, so you're a masterpiece already, right? But then more importantly, you have to find your own journey and make a label of yourself, right? I'm old, so I'm on Facebook. And my hashtag is always superhero life. Mm-hmm. Because I have to understand that I don't stop when I'm tired, I stop when I'm done. And that's the history of our people, right? That we do what needs to be done regardless of if we're tired, if we have the energy, what's going on in our lives. We show up and we save children and we make it happen. And I have to remember that this work is not about me, right? That it is the calling on my life, and that when you're doing this hard work, you're the superhero, because every school needs a superhero, and every child needs a superhero. And what that looks like is a regular, average person just showing up for them, because to them that's extraordinary.
Yo, I think we come to that time where we got to end. I can't think of any other person to kick this In Demand podcast off with. Absolutely. Than the person who sparked the movement with her actions and words.
I'm grateful for that. I'm very grateful.
Yeah, and let's just end off. Wallace, you got any closing thoughts or words for the people?
Just to encourage each other, above and beyond the mission of this organization, to just continue to pour positivity into each other. We're encountering very trying times, as always, and we've always been able to rely on each other to make it through. And so, you know, as we move towards, I don't want to necessarily timestamp what we're doing, but, you know, for our people who are in schools who are listening, take this time, reflect, relax, breathe, be with your family, and recognize that there are kids who you see every day, who you may not talk to every day, who are going home to nothing.
Yes.
And are not going to be eating over break. And not to put that secondary trauma on our school staffs, but to just recognize the value that has to be brought to the table on a day-to-day basis is so important. So I just want to encourage you to just be a superhero. Like Mrs. Davis is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. Davis, any closing words for the people?
Just that you are enough, right? Amen. That it does not matter how you've been labeled. It doesn't matter your socioeconomic background. It does not matter how much money you have or you do have, you don't have or you do have, that you are enough, right? And if you show up, that's enough. And so just be encouraged and know that you are needed. And you don't have to get to a certain level, because the level you're on is enough for a child that needs you.
I'll leave off with a couple of words. First thing is that if you're sitting at home or you watching this and you thinking about being an educator, I would encourage you to do it, but to know that it is labor intense. It's a major expense. But the reward is immense. It's a huge reward. It's definitely revolutionary work. If you look up to revolutionaries in our history, you know, you can be one just by being an educator. Right. If you're a black man and you know you're looking to be activated, you know, education is a good route to go. If you don't want to be an educator, you can still be involved in the lives of our young people as being mentors and volunteers in our schools. That's a great place to start. I'll say it again. We have the In Demand launch January 18th, 2020 at the Durfee Innovation Society. We're going to set the stage where we're going to be able to connect black men to opportunities to become educators, mentors, and volunteers in the city of Detroit. To register, go to IamInDemand.com. I want to thank Ms. Davis.
Thank you.
For coming on our podcast today. Thank my partner, Mr. Wallace, for being here as well. You know, you're going to see more of us together doing these podcasts. You can email us at info@IamInDemand.com. If you got any questions or ideas for our podcast, please hit us up, and we'll see you guys next time.